Tonight we want to talk on a very basic level about how we generate the largest share of local revenue, which is from the property tax. When we talk about the property tax, we're talking about the revenue that we generate as a unit of local government upon all the property within a district. So we're talking about residential, homes, apartments. We're talking about businesses, stores, railroad tracks that go through. Those are all properties that are taxed within our school district. There are two numbers that we need to be familiar with that are key to understanding this. The first is fair market value. Fair market value is the price that a qualified buyer and a qualified seller reach an agreement on when a sale is consummated. So a house goes up for sale, the owner wants a certain amount of money for it, a certain price, and the buyer is willing to pay a certain price. When they come to agreement, that is the fair market value. That's what the house is actually sold for on that given day. That's fair market value. The other term that we want to use is assessed value, because the assessed value in Illinois by law is 33 1/3% of fair market value. This is the number that we use, the assessed value, when determining how much property taxes we will generate. Has nothing to do directly with fair market value, only the assessed value. Now, every 4 years in Illinois and 3 years in Cook County, assessors go around and assess the properties. They reassess the properties. Rarely is this done on a physical basis where they actually go in and look at the property, but they tend to do it from look at building permits. They do a lot of statistical analysis. They generally know how much the property is increasing in value, and they take, when it's a quadrennial reassessment, they basically take a fourth of each of the properties within that township and reassess those. So every year, 1/4 of the properties are being reassessed. In Cook County, it's based on a triennial reassessment period. So it's a third of the properties one year, a third of the properties the next year, and then finally the remaining third get reassessed. Now, this is not a perfect science, because the primary, really the only qualification, it's an exaggeration, but the only qualification of the assessor is that that assessor had one more vote, at least, than the opponent, because these are elected officials. The valuation of homes is not an exact science, because it really comes down to what the fair market value is, what people are willing to pay. That's the only way to truly know what the value of a house is once it's sold. Which, if you've got a house that's sold frequently, you have a real good sense of what fair market value is. If you have senior citizens who may have built that house 50, 60 years ago and have lived in it all their lives, have never sold it, how do you know what the fair market value is today? The only real way you can look and determine that is by looking at other like structures, looking at the type of structure that residence is, looking at the neighborhood, and looking at what those other homes are selling for that are based on the average per square foot value. So, assessed value is 33 1/3% of fair market value. You would take the price of fair market value, multiply it times 0.3333. That's one way. There's several mathematical ways, but this is the way I do it, to determine the assessed value. Now, let's take our school district. This is our school district. And it's very small. It only has 10 residences. So, we have this house who's with a fair market value of $165,999, 1/3 of fair market value. The assessed value is $55,327. That's one house. of our school district. We have another house, $450,000 is the fair market value. That means that the assessed value is $149,985. Another house, $100,000 is the fair market value. That means that the assessed value is $33,330. And I'm just rounding these off, obviously. Really just dropping in the sense. Another house, fair market value, sold for $69,500. Assessed value is $23,164. Another house, $124,600 is the fair market value. That means the assessed value is $41,529. Another house, $84,800 is the fair market value. Assessed value is $28,263. Another house is sold for $259,300. The assessed value, 1/3 of that, is $86,424. Three more homes in our district. $368,725 is the fair market value. The assessed value is $122,896. Another house, $310,000, $205 is the fair market value. The assessed value then is $103,391. And finally, we have a fair market value of $221,500. The assessed value is $73,825. So this is our school district. We have 10 residences. 10 residences. That's total. This is the total properties in our school district, in our pretend school district. If you add all of those up, you find that the fair market value is $2,154,629. We really don't deal with this number. We don't even know what it is. All we know is that fair market value is the basis of assessed value by legislation, by statute. The number that we do care about is the assessed value, $718,134. This obviously is a very small amount of money. It's a very small. This is referred to as the tax base of the school district. It's the combined assessed value of all of these. So if you add up all of these assessed values, the total for the district is $718,134. As I said, these get changed. A fourth of them gets changed every year through a quadrennial reassessment. In Cook County, that is every 3 years. It's a triennial reassessment. Now, when the assessor does these statistics, assessors, as I said, their primary qualification is that they have one more vote than the opponent. That doesn't necessarily make them extremely skilled at knowing the value of homes. The state of Illinois has a correction for this. This correction is called the multiplier. The Illinois Department of Revenue does a study. They do research. They look at actual home sales and see what the actual price was of the home. And then they compare it to what the house or the property had been assessed at. The assessment should be 33 1/3% of what it actually sold for. The state of Illinois looks at the township and determines if that actually occurred. If the assessed values were actually 33 1/3% of the fair market value of actual home sales, there is a multiplier of 1. Because 1 times anything else stays the same. If they find, however, that the assessed values had been lower than they should have been, so maybe they were being assessed at 30% of fair market value, or 25%, or 26%, anything below 33 1/3%. In fact, in Chicago is allowed to assess residential properties at 10%. So they have a big multiplier that starts with 3 in order to bring it up. It's well over 3 in order to bring it up to 33 1/3%. So a multiplier is applied to the assessed values if the State Department of Revenue has found that the assessments have been too low, then they apply a multiplier over 1. Might be 1.2, 1.3, 2, 3, 3.5, in order to bring the assessed values up to the correct amount, to the correct level of 33 1/3%. And if they find in their study that the assessed values were actually over 33 1/3%, so maybe their assessed values were 40% or 35%, then the state will apply a multiplier of less than 1, 0.9, 0.87, point something, to reduce it, because then when you apply that multiplier to the assessed values, it brings them down. Once the multiplier has been applied to all of these values, that is known as the equalized assessed value, the EAV, the equalized assessed value. This is the number that's important to us because we apply a tax rate that the voters have given us authority to extend over the years on the equalized assessed value of the district. So these numbers actually get changed by the multiplier. This really only reflects the first cut in terms of the assessor's work, because then the state has to apply a multiplier. If the multiplier was 1, if the assessments historically had been 33 1/3%, these numbers would stay the same. They would be the EAV, but likely there's some movement, some change that's going to happen. Once we get the EAV, we use that as the base in the formula, because each of the funds have a tax rate. And every one of our tax rates for every one of our funds tends to be different because voters have approved certain rate increases over the years. The state has certain legally allowable tax rates for each of the funds, but through referendum, through voter approval, voters can change those. And typically they change them up through referendum. Typically you'll find the education fund, the operations and maintenance fund will be the ones that, maybe the transportation fund, are the ones that typically are the subject of referendums to raise the rate. But it's with that tax rate that the voters have approved that we apply to the tax base. Now, the final calculation in all of this that I want to deal with tonight, without confusing the issue too much, is the formula of how we generate cash in schools. Now we have 2 types of counties in Illinois: tax capped counties and non-tax capped counties. I want to first deal with non-tax capped counties. Cook and the collar counties are tax capped. We're setting those aside until next time. Tonight we're going to talk about just a non-tax capped county. The magic formula that you'll always remember for how we generate revenue for schools through property taxes in non-tax cap counties is rate, the tax rate, times the EAV divided by 100 equals cash. The rate is the tax rate that voters have approved, and the district will refer to its overall tax rate, but bear in mind, each of the funds has its own individual tax rate. When we talk about the district's tax rate, that's the aggregate, the sum of all the individual tax rates, times the EAV, the equalized assessed value. That is the total assessed value of the district after the state has applied the multiplier. EAV is expressed as units of $100 of EAV. It's just the way the legislation is. That's why we have to divide it by 100. That's how we get cash. So it's rate times EAV divided by 100 equals cash. When we're back in class, we'll actually do some examples of this. But for right now, that's the concept. Just conceptually get this part. That at a very high level is how we generate cash through the local property tax in a non-tax capped county. There's a wrinkle, significant wrinkle, in tax capped counties, but first I think it's just best to get this, and then we'll deal with the limitations that the tax caps provide. So that's it for now, and we'll pick up with tax caps the next time.